Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Remnant Christian Book Reading Channel. I'm your host, Vincent, and today, unfortunately, it's a day late, but there's a reason for it, so I'll explain that in a second. We're going to be reading the Key House book, book one, obviously. We're going to be doing chapters 5 and chapter 6. Let's see how you guys like it. Last time we left off, um the kids, the family, they found a secret room that had a secret little office area where they found their great great grandfather's diary. And now we're waiting because their dad told them that he would read the diary that night and tell us what's going on. So it should be good. Sorry again. I was supposed to post this video yesterday. However, the video I recorded, as soon as I finished, it deleted. And so instead of getting mad or upset, I was like, you know what, I'll leave it for tomorrow. You know, sometimes things like that happen and we can't stay angry and getting upset. And anyway, I was so hungry to eat dinner because I usually do this before I eat dinner. And so I was so hungry to eat dinner that I was like, you know what? I just have to take the loss, the L, and keep it moving, you know? So that's what I did. And that's why we're getting the video today. Now, this book, I'm going to be honest with you guys, since I already read the next chapters yesterday, it gets kind of interesting. Not going to lie to you. It kind of gets interesting. Hold on. It kind of does. So, without any further ado, or without any more blabbering and rambling by yours truly, let's begin The Key House, Chapter 5, The Diary. Caleb and David looked at each other from across the breakfast table. They were antsy in their anticipation of any exciting news their father may have discovered while reading through the diary. He had given no news at dinner the day before. "There's treasure in that tunnel, Caleb. I just know it. Can you imagine what we could do with all that money?" David paused as if in thought. "Treasure or not, I'm still going to be rich." "How is that?" Caleb looked at his younger brother like he lacked the ability to discern the obvious. "I'm pitching my way to fame and fortune. Little League All-Stars is just the beginning. Yup, I'm going all the way to the top." "Yeah, and I'm sure ESPN is right now trying to figure out just where that top is. But they can't find it." "Oh, wait, why?" "Because they can't see past your big head." "Ooh, big words from such a little guy." David became livid. He had been picked on by others for his short stature. He always seemed to walk in the shadow of his older brother. Literally. It was true that Caleb was on the All-Star team, even though he had only been in the league for a little over a month. His teammates and coaches always seemed to oogle over his pitching and batting strength. And it was true that David always tried extra hard to be better than his brother. But he had yet to hit any kind of growth spurt, standing more than 6 inches under him. "You're such an. Go ahead and say it, I dare you," Caleb taunted. "Mommy, David's going to say a bad, disrespectful word." Lizzie had been listening to the boys from the other end of the table and had decided to jump into the fray. "Boys, boys! Honestly, I can hear you from the other end of the house," their mother yelled. At that moment, Dave entered the kitchen and spoke up, relieving Bethany of any further scolding. Caleb, I heard you from the other room. Son, why would you pick on your brother like that? Totally uncalled for. Do you understand how that hurt him? David's anger had been turned to delight as his older brother was being chastised. Dad, do you see his face? He's glad right now. Caleb felt trapped from both sides. David, we don't gloat. And Caleb, tell you what, come with me for right now. Caleb gave his brother an angry look and then responded as respectfully as he could at the moment. Yes, sir. As they sat down in the next room, David spoke in a hushed voice. Caleb, you know your brother is very sensitive about his height right now. Your comment was really hurtful. Why did you do it? He made fun of my desire to be a famous baseball player. I see. Dave pursed his lips, weighing his next words carefully. You have been doing quite well in your playing, and I'm very proud of your headway there. But do you realize how it makes David feel when you talk about it the way you do? Insignificant. The more you talk about your accomplishments, the more he wants to put you down. To put you in your place, so to speak. Remember, let another praise you and not your own mouth. Leave talking about your accomplishments to others. Don't you do it, okay? Plus, as I said, it makes David feel bad. Do you understand? Caleb was silent for a while. It was clear he was thinking about what his father had said to him. He knew he struggled with pride and a desire for others to like him, even praise him. It felt so good. His son's silence prompted Dave to add one more comment. Caleb, without baseball and its potential fame and fortune, you're still infinitely valuable. Don't find your worth in people's opinion of you. Great as they may be, find it in this one thing. God's opinion of you. He says you are dearly loved and have value beyond measure. And God's opinion about you will never change. You follow me? Caleb was still slow to speak, but gave a surrendered answer. I guess. Dave realized his son was still uncertain about what he had shared with him. This truth is hard to grasp, but when you do, it will change how you view yourself and you will stop desiring the applause of others. God's love for you will truly satisfy that desire for others to always think well of you. As amazing as I think you are, God's opinion is the only one that truly matters. Now, how about you apologize to your brother? And then I have some interesting news for you all. Caleb's face brightened. He was sure it had to do with the diary and was bursting at the seams with curiosity. He could barely stand it. When Caleb scurried back into the kitchen to join his brother and sister at the table, he apologized for suggesting David was short. In fact, he said, I think you're kind of tall for your age. Well, maybe not tall, but not short either. You're kind of... Okay. Thank you, Caleb, for that apology. His father quickly interjected before the conversation went awry again. His son had at least tried. And David, thank you for holding your tongue, but maybe ESPN doesn't need to be invoked in conversations with your brother to get a dig in. Fair enough? David winced. I suppose, whatever invoked means. And I'm sorry, Caleb, for being mean. And you're sincere about that? His father pressed. Yes, sir. All right, kids. Thank you. Now, I believe I have some rather intriguing news to share with you this morning before I head off to the school. Dave had recently been hired by a conservative seminary in the small town, and it was just beginning its summer classes. He dangled the words with a long pause to tease them. Well, yes, they said. I've not finished your great great grandpa's diary, but I can share this with you. Bethany placed a plate of eggs, bacon, and grits in front of each family member as her husband began to speak. All eyes were glued to him. Your great great grandfather, Jonathan Noland, was raised in an orphanage in Martinique, an island on the eastern side of the Caribbean, until he was about 10 years old. He says that one night a band of pirates invaded his town of Le Robert and raided his orphanage, taking around 10 or so young boys, including himself, captive aboard their ship, the Phantom, to train them to be pirates. Wow! So, Dad, who was the captain of the ship? The dread pirate Roberts? David laughed. No, silly, he never takes prisoners alive, Caleb bantered. I see. Jokes, their father said. May I continue? Caleb and David looked at each other and said together, As you wish. Bethany, dear, what do you allow our children to watch? Me? Dearest, I believe this is yours to own. Lizzie, her father playfully pleaded, what am I going to do? Or, excuse me, what am I to do? It appears the whole family is against me. I don't know, Daddy, but can't you just keep telling the story and don't get sidetracked? Lizzie was young and still short on tact. Her mother turned toward Dave and, covering her face with her hand, made a silly face of surprise. Yes, so, as I was saying, jokes aside, Jonathan Noland was trained to be a pirate of all things. Apparently, for almost 8 years, he served as a cabin boy and assistant helmsman. One day, the ship was attempting to elude a British galleon, but ran into a bad storm that shipwrecked her. He escaped to shore not far from the sinking vessel, but no others survived. He was the only one. The next day, after the storm had completely passed, he was able to take his small boat back to the sunken ship, which it seems, now that the storm surge had gone down, rested significantly above water. Their father leaned in as if to tell them all a secret. He boarded the ship and hauled in a vast treasure, which he eventually got to the Florida mainland. He settled here and built this house as a young, very wealthy young man. He started a limestone business at the quarry about a mile from here, and, well, that's as far as I've read. David looked at his brother. I knew there was a treasure. Boys, there's no mention of a hidden treasure so far in the diary. None, their father assured them. Bethany looked at her husband with feigned surprise. So, are you saying you truly don't believe there is a treasure, dear? She waited for her husband's answer with a silly grin on her face. Well, technically, I'm not saying that. Oh, good. So maybe do you think you should tell them what you shared with me last night after reading all that? David smiled and shook his head. Bethany was baiting him to reveal more. He initially appeared reluctant to go into any further details, but decided to be forthright. Well, I may have recalled the numerous stories I had heard of the map room growing up, and something about the key house. The what, Dad? Caleb probed. The key house. This is just the story I heard growing up, that this house was the key house as in the main house. Like where the treasure was buried? Here in this house? Caleb was insistent in his questions. Well, let's not. Dave, I know you don't want to get their hopes up, but. She trailed her question off to allow her husband to finish the thought. But it certainly is possible that there is still a treasure here, though we certainly don't know that for sure, he quickly concluded. And no, I don't want to get any false hopes up. Whoa! So there could be a treasure somewhere in this house? David was lost in his imagination. So the rumors seem to go, their father said rather calmly. Dad, when can we investigate the tunnel? I bet it leads right under this house where the buried treasure is, Caleb suggested. Wait, in the house or under the house? I don't get it. David's confusion was shared by all as each shrugged his shoulders. Lizzie insisted. When, Daddy? When what, sweetheart? When can we investigate the tunnel? Dave proceeded carefully. The only available time I have next is this Saturday. And Lizzie, hon, I'm afraid this may be a bit too dangerous for you. So it will be just the boys and me. Before Lizzie could respond, her dad added, You and your mother, you and I, Lizzie, her mother added quickly following the cue. We'll be going garage sale hunting. I need your help getting a table and chairs for the dining room. The one in there is far too old and rickety. Lizzie was torn between the options. Her mother's suggestion seemed to pull the argument right out of her. So she pleasantly settled on following her dad's request. Okay, it sounds like you need my help. These boys just wouldn't know how. So, we're set on this Saturday, Dad? Caleb asked. Sure, this Saturday. Caleb and David looked at each other excitedly. Now, your breakfast, children. Bethany brought her boys back to the present to finish their meal, and before their dad had to head out to the school. Waiting patiently was never an easy virtue for any of the Noland children, but this they would need for the time being. Baseball practice was over for the day, and their final game of the season was later in the week, well before All-Stars began. The field was only about a mile from their house, so Caleb and David walked home their usual route. But this day would be different than the others. The two strode casually by the side of the long winding road that ran through their country neighborhood. The houses were old with large front yards, so not too many neighbors were ever by the road watching for the safety of the children. A black Trans Am squealed its tires while taking a sharp curve in the road. Caleb and David were lost in conversation about the tunnel they had discovered and what they anticipated finding that Saturday to have heard the muscle car careening through their neighborhood. As it sped down the road toward them, the two finally heard its roaring engine and began to turn their heads toward the sound just in time. Suddenly, the car slammed on its brakes close to them and fishtailed slightly before regaining traction. Caleb jumped toward the side of the road, knocking his brother down. As the two stood to their feet, the black car slowly rode down the street beside them, and the driver yelled out the passenger's front window. You Nolands! The gruff voice inquired. Caleb and David knew not to talk to strangers, so they hesitated in their response. I said, you Nolands! Caleb looked at his brother and turned to answer the driver. Maybe. Why do you ask? So, you're new to the area. Probably don't know much about your place. Caught any of the local rumors about it yet? The two boys remained silent.
Well, not much for talking, are you?
Like what? Caleb finally asked.
Like what? You think I'm stupid? Like hidden treasure, that's what. They say there's a curse on it. You know, haunted.
At this, the car started lurching forward over and over as it inched down the road with its engine revving. The driver was obviously seeking to intimidate the young boys.
Your great granddaddy stole it from all of us. It belongs to us.
The driver's voice was escalating in volume while the car continued to crawl along the street.
And I aim to get it back,
He demanded. The Trans Am stopped in the middle of the road, its engine revving, as if waiting to pounce on its victims. The two Noland boys walked as closely to the edge of the road as the hedges beside it would allow them to. At the end of the row of bushes, a low tree branch hung carelessly over the side of the road, forcing the two of them to move out into the road. But before they did, the black muscle car's squealing tires gripped the road and launched it forward erratically, swerving toward the two boys. David extended his arm to keep Caleb from venturing out into the road around the low-hanging branch, but the car was coming straight for them with its back end swishing from side to side. The boys froze, not knowing what to do. There was nowhere to go, nowhere to flee from this maniacal driver. Who was he, and why was he so angry at them? The car roared toward them, but they were trapped. 30 feet. 20 feet. They could feel the engine's thundering vibrations bearing down on them. 10 feet. The boys screamed and turned their heads, afraid to see their fate. Chapter 6. A Hard Lesson. The back of the Trans Am swung wide, wheels screaming toward the two Noland boys, but fell short as the car suddenly swerved and then sped off down the winding country neighborhood road. Its roaring engine faded into the distance. "You all right, David?" his brother asked, seeing him understandably crying and shaking.
Yes, I think so.
"When we get home, I'm telling Dad. He'll take care of him."
But Caleb, we don't even know where he lives.
"Oh, we'll find him. We'll find him all right," Caleb assured his brother that such an injustice would not go unpunished. David just looked at him, wondering exactly who was going to do the punishing. After the boys walked the long driveway and entered the front door, Caleb called out for his dad, seeing his car parked next to the house. "Dad, you're not going to believe what just happened." At this, Dave poked his head around the corner of the kitchen wall. Caleb spotted him and continued. "A black car almost ran us over on purpose. He was so angry at us." "Which way did he go?" was all their father asked before storming out the front door. "Down the road that way," Caleb said, pointing in the car's direction. The boys heard their father's car kicking up gravel as it hurriedly backed down the driveway. I'm sorry, my mustache is tickling me. Apologies. The boys heard their father's car kicking up gravel as it hurriedly backed down the driveway. "Kids, what's going on?" Bethany suddenly appeared from the laundry room with Lizzie. "And why did your father storm out of the house like that? That's just not like him." The two boys explained at great lengths the harrowing experience that had just occurred. David elaborating on the emotions of it all, minus the tears, and Caleb the minute details of the event. Bethany brought them into the kitchen and poured them each a glass of lemonade, and set a small plate of oatmeal raisin cookies in front of them as they continued their story. Just the thing to calm their frazzled nerves. About 30 minutes later, they heard a car pulling up to the house. It was their dad. As he came through the front door, they bombarded him with questions. Did you find him? What did you do to him? Should we call the police? Hold on, everyone. One question at a time. No, I didn't find him, so no, I didn't do anything to him. And what was the other question? The police, Bethany said. Right. They said there wasn't enough information to come by and file a report. And then, turning toward his two sons, he went on. Unless you guys could identify him. Can you? The boys gave a resigned look at each other, and Caleb confessed. His car was really dark inside. We couldn't see him too well. Sorry. At the dinner table, Dave steered the conversation at the outset. So, boys, do you happen to remember what this young man in the black car was so upset about? Yeah, David piped up. He asked us if we had heard the rumors about the house and the treasure. Yeah, Dad, he knew about the treasure. Said it was haunted. Really weird. Caleb shuddered at the thought. And that it all really belonged to them. Whoever them is. David was not the only one mystified by it all. Lizzie spoke up abruptly. They just sound jealous to me. Dave, what have we gotten into moving into your grandparents' house? Is there more to this that you know of? Bethany merely voiced the obvious. I truly don't know. Could you look into it some more, dear? I'm worried. Absolutely. You all have my promise on that. The supposed treasure may end up causing a whole lot more problems than the adventure is worth, Dave muttered. The kids merely looked at their father and gave a deep sigh. All of this really was putting a damper on the excitement of it all, and the real adventure had yet to begin. As Bethany dropped the boys off at baseball practice the next day, Caleb reminded her that Jared and Angela were coming over after practice to play and eat dinner at their house. Oh, trust me, boys, your mother hasn't forgotten about that. I'm looking forward to it. As she and Lizzie drove off, David nudged Caleb. Look! Across the parking lot was a black Trans Am, like the one that had nearly hit them the day before. Do you suppose it's the same one? I wonder, Caleb said as he began to move toward the car to get a closer look. Are you crazy? What if it is his and he sees us? We're goners. David was starting to shake again just thinking about it. Come on, Caleb. We'll be late for practice. I really don't want to run laps again. Though Coach Connolly was an elder in their church, he played no favorites and was a stickler for being on time. He firmly believed that commitment to a team started there, being on time to practice and game warm-ups. Fine, but if he works here, it's going to creep me out. Me too, but just not right now. As the coach called all the players in, he congratulated Caleb, Jared, and Angelo for making the All-Stars. After a round of applause, he laid out the plan for practice. Beginning with 3 innings of play and only 8 players per team, David's team was up first and Caleb's team took the field with him on the mound. Let's talk it up out there, the coach yelled as the players encouraged Caleb. He started off with a fast breaking ball. The batter quickly stepped out of the batter's box for fear of being hit as the ball came in like a missile toward him, but broke and slid across the plate. Strike one, Coach Rodriguez called as he umpired the game from the plate. Caleb resumed his position on the mound, surveyed his catcher's signals, and threw a low fastball that crossed the plate well before the batter swung. You're smoking 'em today, Noland, came the chatter from the infield. Caleb smiled wide, adjusted his hat, wiped his forehead with his fingers, and gripped the ball. The batter was determined not to go 3 and out and crowded the plate. The windup was typical, The windup was typical. Fast and strong. The ball was released with a grunt as it flew toward home plate. Overly anxious batters never fared well when Caleb followed up on his nerve-wracking fastball with a changeup. This time was no different as the batter swung much too early and off balance, caught by its wobbly float through the air. The batter hit the ground with his bat, frustrated he had been struck out. Caleb's teammates talked it up as the next batter strode up to the plate, but he went down just as easily. David was up next and approached with confidence. He was used to his brother's play and knew how to anticipate his pitches. After all, he was the one who caught for his brother the last year or so, getting ready for the season. Plus, David, though shorter than most on his team, was one of the better hitters. He fouled the first two pitches into the stands and, at 0-2, he knew he couldn't let the next one by him. So he edged toward the plate and crouched low. Caleb eyed his catcher, nodded his head, and threw a fastball high and inside. David threw himself backwards to avoid being hit. It narrowly missed his shoulder and chin as he fell to the ground. Humiliated, he picked himself up. Obviously angry with his brother, he pounded the plate with his bat. "David, don't just crowd the plate," his brother called to him from the mound. Feeling rattled, David surrendered the inside of the plate and stepped back a bit. But Caleb quickly discovered his weakness and hurled a slider, low and slightly outside. David was drawn into it and swung away, but missed. The infield erupted with cheers as they ran toward the dugout. Caleb gestured excessively with fist and glove, punching the air over his head, and then mockingly pointed his glove hand toward his brother, hooting as he did. David threw the bat down the first baseline and charged his brother. The dugout coach was able to step in between the two before there was a collision. "You're just a sore loser, David. Grow up like everyone else and get over it," Caleb jeered his brother. While the dugout coach held David back, Coach Connolly called Caleb aside to speak with him privately. "Son, I may be first to say that I'm sure I've seen let me redo that. Son, may I first say that I'm not sure I've seen a player with as much control in his pitches as you, nor a breaking ball as strong as yours. And I've been around this league for over 15 years. But what you did out there was uncalled for. You intimidated your brother and then humiliated him in front of his teammates. And then your excessive celebration was just beyond words. And Caleb, you know that this isn't the first time we've had a talk like this. I need to do this to help you. You're benched for our final game. And son, I know your dad. You come from a good family, but this? You need to sit out and think about how you treat people sometimes. Am I clear on what I'm doing and why?" Caleb was furious but knew better than to speak in such situations. He bit his tongue and simply and sharply acknowledged, "Yes, sir." By the end of practice, both Caleb and David had time to cool down as they walked off the field and before Jared and Angelo met with them to walk home. Caleb approached his brother. "Hey, I want to talk to you about what happened out there earlier." "Yeah, it was really arrogant and mean," David replied. Caleb pursed his lips, trying not to allow his frustration to do the speaking. "Please don't make this harder than it is for me. I was wrong and I admit it." David stared at him, waiting. The silence was awkward. "What?" Caleb demanded. "And?" Caleb stopped walking and looked down to the ground, trying to hide his frustration, but also trying to do the right thing. Wow, you really are trying to. Look, I'm sorry, okay? David paused before answering, enjoying the moment. Fine. And then he quickly ran to catch up with Jared and Angelo. As Caleb caught up, the four of them walked home without incident and made sure they stayed on the grass, especially while passing through their neighborhood. Jared and Angelo were great athletes. Caleb was excited to go to All Stars with the two of them. Jared hit the most home runs in the league and had a batting average over 360, while Angelo was an outstanding shortstop batting over 420. An incredible mark, especially for an 11-year-old. The two took sports seriously. So, when they all played broom ball, a new sport for the two guests, they were enthused by it and aggressive. The sun hung low in the sky, but sufficiently above the bordering treetops to cast few shadows on the playing field of the Nolands' backyard. Jared and Angelo caught on quickly to the sport, but were still no match for the Noland duo. Down 5-2, the rookies were desperate for scores, and their sometimes wild swings proved it. As Angelo broke away from David close to their goal, Jared took a hard swing at the rubber ball to pass it to him, but caught it awkwardly, sending it flying through the air well to the right of the shed. The trees were unable to stop its soaring flight as it sailed through a break in the protective wall into the neighbor's very large backyard. No worry, guys. No worries, guys. I'll get it, Caleb yelled, tossing his broom to the ground and heading for the fence. Dude, seriously? You're going into old Bill Grayson's backyard? Jared was astonished. Caleb paused. Old Bill who? Grayson, Jared said. You haven't heard of him and he's your neighbor? No, and why should I have? Jared looked at Angela with surprise and then back at Caleb. Because everyone knows he's a murderer. Just got lucky and got away with it, I heard. Yeah, and they say he had it in for his son-in-law and one day just up and killed him, Angelo said. Plus, he's got Rottweilers back there, Jared added. They'll eat you for dinner, and old Bill Grayson won't stop them. Yeah, Angelo continued the twice-told sinister story. He and his grandson stash a ton of junk cars back there, and the grass is like super tall. Those dogs will see you, but you won't see them. Not until it's too late. That kid from Danover Middle School tried taking a shortcut through their backyard. He was innocent, Angelo interrupted. Never heard the stories before. Took his chances and lost. Those dogs nearly took his leg off. Managed to get out alive, though. Lucky him. Jared was shaking his head and then, sounding very serious, said, But not everyone that goes in there comes out alive. Like? David could not finish his thought. Yeah, exactly, Jared assured him. Wait, you guys are pulling our leg. No way, Caleb argued back. Yes way! I dare you. Prove us wrong then, Jared challenged. I'm going to do it, Caleb said, accepting the dare. Caleb, you're not going to. It's not worth it. It's suicide, his brother insisted. Look. Look, all three of you climb up on the fence and grab a tree branch to steady yourself. And spread out, Caleb said as he inched over the 6-foot chain link fence. Let me know where the ball is and if you see any of the man-eating beasts. You think it's funny, but I'm telling you, you're going to regret this, Jared shot back. We'll see. Do you guys see the ball? Dude, I sent it way over near that huge wood pile, way behind that mound of rocks over there. Jared was standing on his toes, looking through a small break in the tree branches. You'll never get it. Seriously, Caleb, I'll just buy you another one. Let's not worry about it. It's not worth it. Any signs of the dogs yet? Caleb called out, ignoring his friend's suggestion. Nope, they said in unison. Caleb crept through the line of trees and headed toward the woodpile a good distance in front of him, trying his best to keep low. As he passed the mound of large rocks, he could hear some voices coming from the garage another 50 yards beyond the woodpile. He paused, deciding whether to continue or abort his mission. His heart was pounding as he decided to move on still stealthily. A young man suddenly tumbled out of the open garage doors into the gravel driveway that led to the back of the house and then to the street. He was short but stocky with long, black, straight hair pulled back into a slight ponytail. He quickly righted himself and pulled his rumpled tank top down. Caleb could easily see it had been torn. The young man braced his footing as a large and much older man had appeared from the garage and was advancing aggressively toward him.
You think you're going to leave me for that? I raised you, boy. You ain't going nowhere. Not as long as you're living under my roof. You work for me.
His words were loud and abusive. Caleb cringed as the old man spoke. He froze so as to remain undetected. The two men stood toe to toe with each other, unyielding in their verbal altercation. The old man circled around the smaller, younger one as if to intimidate him. Caleb chose to continue to crawl toward the woodpile. It was only about 20 feet away from him now. He could see Jared pointing to his left, so he moved in that direction. With a little coaching, he managed to find the ball without being noticed. Or so he thought. On the other side of the woodpile, he heard a rustling and then a bark. Caleb's friends and brother saw the dog now. He had been asleep and had probably been awakened by all the shouting, but he wasn't looking in Caleb's direction. At least not yet. "Caleb, run!" David shouted as loud as he could. At that, his brother stood to his feet, discovered. There was no time to figure out things now. He left the ball and ran as fast as his long legs could carry him toward the fence, energized by his fear. It seemed like a longer distance than he remembered. He was breathing hard, not sure if it was because he was running so fast or because the dog was now hot on his trail.
"Get him, Gunther!"
he heard the old man cry out, followed by several hoots. They say that your life flashes before your eyes when you face death. For Caleb, there was only a single moment. At the baseball field when he humiliated his brother. He was not sure why he did things like that. He just did. The regret shamed him yet again as he raced onward. He still had plenty to go as he heard the vicious dog's bark and his paws pounding the ground close behind him. One thing he knew for sure. He would never make it to the fence before his savage pursuer got to him. And that is the end of chapter 6. What do you guys think about that? That was pretty good, don't you think? A little bit of a Sandlot Easter egg. A little bit, if you know what the Sandlot is. That was definitely a piece of the Sandlot right there. Come on now. Page for page. Rottweiler, the little ball into the backyard. Absolutely the Sandlot. And I think it's actually pretty fun. Well, with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the story. And I hope you have a good day. Good night, I guess. And a good evening, afternoon. I'm not going to name every single time of the day. Whenever you're watching, I hope you're having a good day. You better. Anyway, God bless you all. Remember that Jesus loves you, and be prepared to see if Caleb kicks the bucket because of a Rottweiler. See you guys later. Bye.